Today was a really interesting day. We started our morning at the hostel, which was nice. We slept in a little bit. Actually, I didn't. I woke up really early because I couldn't sleep. But we had this great, gigantic breakfast. It was eggs, salami, ham, cheese, tomatoes, and olives. It was delicious, but like hearty. Then after that, we went to the NGO. Then we talked to Dwamna and Anna Maria, and she runs the NGO in Romania. And she talked to Romania a lot and told us kind of like what they did and gave us pamphlets, and that was all very informative. And then after that, we went to the refugee camp with Marie, and she gave us a tour of the refugee camp. It was really interesting. There's a whole section for kids and a whole section for asylum seekers. And the kids actually work with a group called Save the Children, and I hope to be able to volunteer with them. Also, there's another woman with short blonde hair, I can't remember her name, but she teaches Romanian classes to the refugees, so we're hoping to be able to possibly take some of those classes with them. What else? There's actually no refugees in the camp right now, which is really interesting. We just found that out yesterday. They all went to Holland about 2 weeks ago. So we'll see if there's supposed to be 55 men from a Yemen prison coming either early next week or later next week, just next week sometime, which will then kind of start the whole process. That was great. We went to a store today. It was kind of like a Romanian Costco, but it was called Cash and Carry, which was funny. But it was huge, and they carried everything, absolutely everything. I bought a bunch of supplies that I thought I needed that they wouldn't have here, and the store was packed with everything you could possibly want. After that, we came back to the pensione and we started working on some homework, but right then we got a phone call from Dwamna Anna Maria, and she said the dinner was ready. So we went over to the NGO and we had dinner, and it was a traditional Romanian dinner. It was absolutely delicious. There were fresh vegetables from their garden, tomatoes, cucumbers, green onions, radishes, and then like a beet salad. And then on another plate, there were the most amazing deviled eggs. They were so good, homemade mayonnaise. I'm not even a mayonnaise fan, and they were delicious. There's also these stuffed mushrooms, which were so good. It was the cap of the mushroom, and then stuffed inside of it were like the stem of the mushroom chopped up, and gigantic chunks of garlic, and then like a cheese on top. Oh my goodness, so good. And then on another plate, there was little pieces of salami, and then veal cutlets, coated and then fried in a pan. Papas fritas, fried, but like pan fried potatoes. Oh, there was one more thing on that plate. Oh, it was like a pecorino cheese with a grape and then on a toothpick. And those were actually really good as well. And then it was just absolutely, and then she brought us these bowls, and the bowls, it was like a navy bean soup with dill, and it was delicious. It reminded me of the Italian fagioli soup. And then I didn't try this, I was so full by this point, but there was a bowl of lettuce, and it was soaking in vinegar, and Adrian said that that was very good. And then we talked for a while, and we actually sat down with 4 refugees. One of them, I was surprised by how well he spoke English. And we talked to him for probably about an hour, and he told us his whole life story and how he got there. And he actually, if I can find it, wrote me a entry into my journal. And on the right hand side, if you can see it, it is all of his family members and then their ages, and then the X means that they're married, and then the S and the B means that they're a brother or a sister. And then down here, that's his father and his mother. And then over here is how he described his entire life story, or not his life story, but his refugee story. And it was really interesting. He is from Tanzania, and he went to Libya to visit a friend, and he was visiting his friend in Libya, and they were talking about Gaddafi. And his friend was talking about how Gaddafi was such a great leader, blah, 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 blah. And he said at this lunch that he thought like Gaddafi was a dictator, and thought nothing of it. They just kept talking, kept talking. The next day, the polizia came with their guns and their riot masks and arrested him because he was now a terrorist, because he thought Gaddafi was a dictator. And they arrested him, and he was in prison for 60 days. In the first 10 days, they didn't give him any food, only a liter of water per day. And then for the next 50, they gave him, he went like this. He said a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter panini and a liter of water was all they had every single day. And there was 50 people in a very, very small room. He showed us using the room we were sitting in. And then there was 2 small windows, probably he said about this big, I guess that big. And they had bars on them, and that was the only air that they had coming in to the entire place. And when he got out, 60 days later, he came to Romania and tried to get into a refugee camp, and the director at the refugee camp said, no, you can't come, you can't come. And he said it was December, and he was in sandals and shorts and absolutely freezing, and they wouldn't let him in. And as time passed, he went to the NGO where he met Dwamna Anna Maria, and Dwamna accepted him and said that he could stay there. And he's now been there for, I believe, 2 years, or that's when the whole process started. But yeah, and his story was just amazing, and he was very open, and we took some videos of him talking. I think one of the greatest things I learned about this experience was that the greatest thing I learned was not so much about what he told me or about refugees themselves, but about myself personally back home. When he was talking, we really had to be engaged because of the English or the language barrier. And he used many hand motions, and it really helped, but because of the language barrier, you had to stay focused. And I realized in how many conversations I have at home how not focused I am. Even though I think I'm listening, I'm not engaged. There's like 5 steps to listening. It's hearing, attending, repeating, responding, and remembering. I think those are them. Hearing, meaning obviously just the audio of it. Attending, being present. Repeating, maybe repeating's not one. Paraphrasing maybe. And then responding, so reciprocation, and remembering. And I feel that when I have conversations at home, I sometimes lack the attending and the remembering because I'm not as engaged as I should be. But no, his story was absolutely amazing. I was just surprised how open he was. And then while he was speaking, they brought out desserts and coffee, and they were like the pastries, the tarts with the custard inside and the fruit on top and then the glaze, and those were delicious. And then they also had chocolate rum balls. It was like a fudge ball with rum, and that was a little too strong for me, but it was very good. Oh, at the beginning of dinner, they brought out some homemade alcohol, and it was so strong. It definitely, if the goal was to cleanse your palate, it was successful. That was about it, but it was a full day. We had a great time. Another highlight of the day, we went to a Turkish restaurant for lunch, and we had the best baklava in the entire world. It was delicious. But highlight was talking to Hatem and hearing his story, and just being able to visually perceive his emotions while telling us, because when he started talking about his family and wanting to go home to them, you could see his eyes just getting red and watery. And his dad, he said, was 86 years old, and he said he's like this, meaning old. He's coming in, and it was really an interesting day. Really interesting day. I had a lot of fun. It was our first full day, and it was a great one. In my blog, I talked about taking there's a quote about taking the first step in your journey, and I talked about how readings and meeting the people back in Spokane was the first step in our journey. And I feel like today in Romania we took a leap, and that leap was really important for our success here and what we're hoping to accomplish. So